Elvira's greatest dream in life is to meet a charming prince. She eagerly read Prince Julian's love poems, imagining herself as the heroine. But in reality, Elvira was nothing like the princesses poets dedicated their verses to. Rebecca, mother of Elvira and her sister Alma, is preparing to marry a wealthy widower. The woman and her 2 daughters are brought by carriage to a grand estate. Otto welcomes his bride to the kingdom of Sweden. Elvira can't take her eyes off Otto's daughter Agnes, a girl of extraordinary beauty. Rebecca and Otto waste no time and get married without delay. Agnes gives Elvira a tour of the estate and introduces her to a handsome young man named Isak, who takes care of the horses. Agnes's father always gave her the very best, as many beautiful dresses and jewels as she wanted. But such luxury was out of reach for Elvira. Agnes notices a book of Prince Julian's poems in her stepsister's hands. Elvira shares how deeply she dreams of marrying him. That evening, a celebratory dinner is held in honor of the wedding. When Otto jokingly throws a piece of cake at Elvira, everyone bursts out laughing. Elvira laughs too. Suddenly Otto falls ill and collapses dead right onto the table. Agnes screams in horror. Otto's sudden death comes as a heavy blow to the entire family. Elvira hears wrenching sobs coming from Agnes's chambers and brings her some chocolate for comfort. But Agnes doesn't want sweets or anything at all, she just wants everyone to leave her alone. But Agnes doesn't leave, remembering how her father died and how her mother didn't get out of bed for many days. Agnes is angered by Elvira's words and the fact that she took her brush without asking. In an emotional outburst, Agnes tells Elvira that if it weren't for her mother's money, Otto would have never let people like them into his life. Elvira is puzzled. What money is she talking about? She hurries to tell her mother that Otto didn't have any money at all. But Rebecca already knows. Otto was deeply in debt, and all the livestock and arable land will be confiscated. And even that won't be enough to pay it off. Rebecca faints. Elvira promises her mother that they'll find a solution. Rebecca replies that it's not that simple. She's no longer young, no one needs her anymore, especially not with 2 hopeless daughters. Elvira says she could get married. Rebecca advises her daughter to look in the mirror and stop fooling herself. Alma isn't an option yet either, she's still too young. Elvira looks at herself in the mirror and sees a reflection far from attractive. Not everyone is lucky to be born beautiful like Agnes, who is still weeping over her father's body. Her mother passed away long ago, and now she is completely alone. Suddenly the sound of a horn echoes. An envoy from the royal palace announces that the king and his son, Prince Julian, are inviting all the maidens of the kingdom to a ball that will take place after 4 full moons. Elvira realizes this is her chance to fulfill her greatest dream, because at the ball the prince will choose his bride. Rebecca takes her daughter to a well-known royal surgeon, Dr. Esthétique, who promises to fix Elvira's nose. He also recommends that she wear false eyelashes. That way she'll become a beauty. The price is steep, but Rebecca believes it's a wise investment. If Elvira marries well, she might finally be able to lift the family out of massive debt. To start with, Dr. Esthétique decides to remove Elvira's braces. Alma watches in horror as the procedures are extremely painful. Now Elvira's smile no longer looks so dreadful, but there's still a lot of work ahead. The doctor begins reshaping Elvira's nose. She screams, everything is done without anesthesia. Rebecca smiles, imagining her daughter's promising future, while Alma is struck speechless in terror. After the procedure, Elvira must wear a special mask for a while. Madame Sophie, head of the kingdom's elite school for women, announces to her pupils that they've been granted the honor of opening Prince Julian's upcoming ball with a dance performance. All the girls gasp with excitement. Madame Sophie and Madame Vanya explain that they will select only the best for lead and supporting roles. The chosen girls will have a unique opportunity to impress the prince. It will be the most important night of their lives. The palace will be filled with counts, barons and wealthy merchants. The girls begin rehearsing under Madame Vanya's direction. Elvira pours her soul into the dance, but receives only a disdainful look from Madame Vanya. The madam orders Elvira to move to the back and tells Agnes to step forward. Elvira barely holds back tears. Pushed to the very last row, alongside other girls as plain as she is, Elvira watches with envy as Agnes shines in the front. At dinner, Elvira is served only water with lemon slices. She needs to lose weight before the ball. She watches with envy as the others eat delicious meals. Agnes announces that she has chosen a date for her father's funeral. Rebecca objects, saying they can only afford it after the ball, once Elvira is married. Deeply hurt, Agnes gets up from the table. Every evening she brings flowers to her father's body. The room is swarming with flies and filled with a disgusting smell. Rehearsals continue. In addition to dancing, the girls must learn to keep perfect posture and fan themselves with elegance. Compared to many of the others, Elvira looks utterly ridiculous. During breaks, she immerses herself in Prince Julian's poetry. Soon a list is hung on the wall with the names of those who will perform in the royal ball's dance presentation. Elvira can't believe her eyes when she sees her name, even if it's at the very bottom. She is closer than ever to her dream. Madame Vanya instructs the girls, saying that all eyes will be on them at the ball. She asks one of them to step forward and perform the routine. Elvira volunteers, and to everyone's surprise, Madame Vanya allows her. But at one point she tells the girl to stop and begins mocking her. It turns out Rebecca paid for her daughter to be in the group. If not for that, Madame Vanya would never have chosen someone like Elvira. Madame Vanya asks Agnes and 2 other girls to come forward and perform the routine. Watching this, Elvira struggles to contain her emotions. Agnes's dresses won't fasten on Elvira. Rebecca doesn't care how the maids manage it, they must get that dress on Elvira before the ball. No one in the household knows that at night the girls secretly eat sweets. Madame Sophie is confident that the prince will not be able to resist Agnes. Sophie gives each girl personal guidance before such an important event. Elvira thinks of herself as hopeless and fat, but Madame Sophie encourages her, saying there is something beautiful in every person. Suddenly Sophie asks Elvira for permission to see her new nose. Through the pain, Elvira removes the mask. Sophie says it's brave, not everyone in her place would have dared. She adds that what matters most is what's inside, and hands her a small box. Later, Elvira and Agnes go horseback riding through the forest. Elvira rereads some of Prince Julian's poetry, then shows Alma a tapeworm egg. Sophie gave it to her so she could eat as much as she wanted and still lose weight. Alma calls her sister foolish. You'd have to be completely insane to willingly swallow a parasite egg. The sisters argue, and Alma storms off as Elvira yells at her not to dare tell their mother. Agnes is grieving deeply for her father, and Isak is the only one who understands her. They have been in love for a long time, but Agnes knows they are not meant to be together. She is supposed to marry the prince. Despite everything, Elvira swallows the egg. She is willing to do anything to win the prince. Suddenly she hears loud laughter, and hiding behind some rocks, spies Prince Julian with 2 other noble young men. They are hunting, drinking and talking about women. Elvira accidentally gives herself away and locks eyes with the prince. His friends begin to mock Elvira's appearance, and Julian joins in. She hides again and continues watching them. The prince and his companions practice archery. Elvira is mesmerized by Julian's beauty. Returning late in the evening, Elvira hears sounds coming from the stables and catches Agnes with Isak. When they notice her presence, Elvira runs away and tells her mother everything. Rebecca, furious, grabs Agnes by the hair and calls her a fallen woman. Agnes screams that Rebecca has no right to treat her this way, but Rebecca insists she has every right. She could throw Agnes out of the house, but instead she orders the servants to load the girl with hard labor. Elvira is happy that now she can eat whatever she wants without worrying about her figure. Rebecca drives Isak away. Agnes, locked inside, watches helplessly as he leaves. Elvira rejoices. 3 full moons pass. Alma tends to the horses, while Agnes does all the other hard work. Elvira can finally take off the mask. Rebecca is thrilled with the surgeon's work. Elvira spends a long time admiring her reflection in the mirror. Her face is now lovely, and her figure more refined. Elvira watches through the window as Agnes milks the cow. So who's the ugly stepsister now? Dr. Estetique's motto is, beauty is pain. The doctor intends to perfect Elvira's appearance and asks the nurse to strap the patient down. He then applies a numbing ointment to Elvira's face and begins sewing on the false eyelashes. Despite the anesthetic, Elvira screams. At night, she is tormented by pain in her face and growling in her stomach. Alma can't sleep either. Because of the bandage on her face, Elvira has to walk blindly. When she bumps into her sister in the hallway, Alma asks what's going on. Elvira lies, saying she needs the bathroom, but she's really headed to the pantry. Her hunger is unbearable. Awakened by the noise, Agnes comes in and hands Elvira a piece of cake. She begins to eat ravenously. Agnes has stopped attending rehearsals because Rebecca forbade her from going to the ball. Madame Vanya is forced to find a replacement for the lead dancer, and she chooses Elvira. Sophie smiles, knowing Elvira's secret. She can't control her hunger. Agnes has become a servant in her own home and is mockingly called Cinderella. Every evening Elvira demands that Agnes read her Prince Julian's poetry and brush her hair. But soon she might not need a brush, her hair has begun to fall out rapidly. Rebecca gives her daughter a special surprise, a beautiful dress that cost a fortune. Elvira is delighted. Rebecca orders Agnes to help Elvira get dressed. Elvira is the lead dancer and has the honor of opening the ball. Rebecca treats Agnes worse than the servants, forcing her to do all the dirty work. Looking at her reflection in the mirror, Elvira revels in her own appearance for the first time. But now she has to wear a wig, she is halfway bald. At night, Elvira cannot sleep from hunger and eats in huge portions. Against her stepmother's wishes, Agnes plans to go to the ball. In a fit of rage, Elvira begins tearing her stepsister's dress. If Agnes has nothing to wear, she won't be able to attend. Rebecca promises her daughter that she will be the most beautiful girl at the ball and that the prince won't be able to resist her. Otto is still unburied. Agnes has fallen asleep beside his body and wakes to her mother's voice calling her. Agnes's mother tells her that her shoes are right in her pocket. Agnes does indeed find a pair of beautiful shoes in her pocket. Now she'll be able to go to the ball, no one will recognize her. But her mother warns her, at midnight her carriage will turn back into a pumpkin. Rebecca prepares her daughter for the ball, which is happening today. Soon they set off for the royal castle. Everything is going according to plan, but Elvira can't relax because of the growling in her stomach. The prince is introduced to the kingdom's greatest beauties. Elvira is extremely nervous, but Rebecca is certain everything will go just as they've hoped. Finally, Elvira is presented to the prince. Everyone admires her beauty. Madame Sophie whispers to a royal advisor that just 6 months ago, Elvira was round as a ball, and it was Sophie who whipped her into shape. Neither Julian nor his friends recognize Elvira as the girl they once mocked. The girls prepare to perform their dance routine. Despite the constant rumbling in her stomach, Elvira is happy. The girl shines at the ball. Julian can't take his eyes off her, breathless with admiration. Later, the guests continue their merrymaking and idle conversations. A line forms to dance with Elvira. The prince must choose a partner for the dance. Elvira can't believe it when he walks up to her and asks her to dance. The music drowns out the rumbling in Elvira's stomach. The prince tells her how beautiful she is. But suddenly Agnes appears in a luxurious blue dress, and Julian's attention shifts to her instantly. Agnes's face is hidden behind a veil. Humiliated, Elvira watches through tears as Julian twirls with Agnes. Feeling a sudden wave of nausea, Elvira runs off. Her body is infected with parasites, but she's too afraid to confess it to her mother. Rebecca demands to know what's going on. Elvira cries, saying that she's dying. Rebecca orders her daughter to pull herself together and return to the ball. There are still plenty of rich men. One after another, men invite Elvira to dance. She begins to lose her mind, consumed by the chaos around her. At one point Elvira sees Agnes's face under the veil. As the clock strikes 12, Agnes flees, losing a slipper. The prince declares he will marry the girl whom the slipper fits. At home, Agnes pretends she never left. Elvira grabs a cleaver and demands that Agnes hand over the slipper. A fierce fight breaks out between the two girls, interrupted by Rebecca, clearly drunk. She's brought home some man from the ball. Elvira tries to say that the mysterious beauty at the ball was Agnes. But Rebecca doesn't listen, ordering her daughter to go to bed. Elvira had her chance, and she blew it. Elvira is desperate, the slipper is too small for her. Then her eyes fall on the cleaver, and a horrifying idea takes shape. She could make the slipper fit. And she does. Alma and Rebecca rush in at the sound of screams. Elvira sobs, repeating that she has to fit into the slipper. After giving Elvira a sleeping draft, Rebecca notices that Elvira chose the wrong foot. The prince has the left slipper. Alma begs them to stop, but there's no turning back. Elvira dreams of Julian placing the slipper on her foot, and it fits perfectly. The prince immediately declares her his bride. She is awakened by the sound of a horn announcing the prince's arrival. He is searching for the girl who fits the slipper. Losing her mind from pain and unable to stand, Elvira crawls down the stairs and falls. The next moment she sees Agnes standing over her, and then walking away. A minute later, Elvira hears the prince announce that he has found his princess. Agnes has claimed everything, while all of Elvira's suffering was in vain. The dream of the prince now feels just as distant as it did when her journey began. The rumbling in Elvira's stomach grows worse, but Alma knows there's an antidote. Alma gives her sister the medicine. In shock, Alma watches as a worm comes out, and then another. Alma decides to leave home with her sister, because it's clear their mother doesn't care about them. Elvira can't walk, so Alma helps her onto a horse. They must cross the border before nightfall.